All right, so we're back with more questions and answers for Chef Kyle and his sister Crystal with Cooking in the Pantry with Chef Kyle.
What's in the Pantry is the name of the show.
You know what? That's right. I almost changed the name of the show. So we're back with Cooking in the Pantry with Chef Kyle, or What's in the Pantry. We'll have you choose. We're going to do a
No, we're not going to
in
do
the
that.
beginning.
No, we're not
Send
doing
that
that
into the
crap.
comment aisle.
We're not. I like what's in the pantry.
All right.
And that's actually almost one of our questions, so we're going to
That's
talk
right.
about that.
So there we go. So let's get started.
So it's interesting. Remember, I was teasing you a little bit about when we were first doing uniforms, and I
Yes.
was saying, wait, what's that stuff that you have in your sleeve pocket?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
why do you have that there?
All right. Now, you'll see a lot of times that a chef will always have a Sharpie. That's to mark for the times that things were made. Also to put in where, of course, there's a word called FIFO, which is first in, first out, or LIFO, which is last in, first out. You're going to mark the times and the dates that these things were made and put in the refrigerator.
What do? You put them
or
in a book or
sometimes they
something?
were cooked. You actually write them, which is why it's a Sharpie, directly onto a piece of tape that's on the outside of the item.
Okay.
Even when you're in a buffet that you go into in a restaurant, they already know, because they have on the description of what it is above, the time that it was actually made and the temperature that it should be at. That's why the next thing that you have to do is the meat thermometer.
Oh,
now, guys,
that's very important.
This has a poke on the end because you put it in. There's actually a line on here that tells you how far in it's supposed to be stuck.
Oh, wow.
You may not see it because naturally you can't. I could always do a 3D thing.
No, don't.
But the
That's
thing
already
about it
giving
is
me a headache.
that's very important is that not only it has the different temperature gauges on the outside, for those who may or may not know, look it up if you're not sure.
Is it
but
here?
whenever you stick, yes.
Oh, got it.
Whenever you stick a meat thermometer into food, no matter what it is, you make sure you never stick it next to the metal, the porcelain, or the bone of any meat. Now, of course, everybody's going to say, well, why is that? Guys, you're measuring the temperature of the product.
Right. It changes
product.
the temperature. It changes
That's
the temperature.
right. And it will completely make a difference. Give me this back.
Oh, don't worry. I got one of my own.
Yeah, and I
but
have
you know
4.
what's interesting?
You're fired again.
Shut up. You know what's interesting, which I really like about this, and mine has it too. It has
The things on it,
food,
yes.
although it does have it on this little meter right here, but it has it actually on this like sleeve.
Right.
That's right
Now,
here.
I don't want to make it seem, guys, like there should be a thermometer for idiots, because it's not a matter of which one you buy, what it looks like. Look it up, write it down, pay attention.
Got it.
Never make pork less than the temperature it's supposed to be.
And
Never
chicken.
make chicken. Please, meat is one of the few things that you can kind of have at either too well done or not well done or rare or anything in between. But if you notice, that's one of the few.
Yeah.
After that, it's really not a gray area anymore. It's
Gotcha.
black or white.
Gotcha.
Okay, very important. Okay, a head cover is very important because I don't care if you have as much hair as I do. And I think enough of you know that I'm bald. But the fact of the matter is, it's still not supposed to be where sweat, you're fired again, your sweat or anything else can drip in the food. Your body should be covered. You should have sleeves. And most of all, an apron or something that covers your front, just in case you get a splash or there's too much of a heat issue when you open up an oven door or stand over a stove.
So even like someone like myself, I don't have the uniform. Uniform, I love it. It's great. But I don't have a uniform. So for me, I always wear like some type of shirt.
Right.
That's, shirt that's covering everything. I don't wear, unless I need oven mitts, I don't wear gloves. I always pull my hair back, even when I'm cooking my own dinner.
Right.
I always pull my hair back because you never know when, hair gets on your hands and stuff, because you could just go like this. The glass is kind of, I don't sweat. I do sweat, but it doesn't kind of roll too far. So that's
okay.
the good thing.
And the biggest thing with glasses, and ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you honestly, when I first started cooking, I didn't need glasses. I do now. One of the reasons why is because these things that are called fingers, I like them. I don't want to slice one by mistake.
Yeah.
I don't want
Good
to
point.
smash one by mistake. And I definitely want to be able to see what I'm doing every time you slice something.
Okay.
Every
Got
time
it.
you use one of those really sharp knives that you see me use, that means that I could have very much of a chance of cutting myself. And if I'm not paying attention, all of those things mean nothing at all.
Right. Now, speaking of cutting yourself, because I've seen this many, many times, your knives should always be sharp.
Absolutely.
And we had friends who said, well, I've used like dull knives and it still works. But, so talk about
Right.
sharpening your knives.
Okay.
Now, you don't need a steel, of course, but,
Right.
you know, go ahead.
But here's the thing. As long as you have something that can sharpen your knife, that's 99% of the job. The most important, though, is that if you know how to sharpen the knife, and I can easily do this in demonstrations, you've seen me do it at high speed, and me and Crystal, of course, joked about the fact that if you do this too fast and you don't know how to do it, then you'll be counting your fingers. The old thing about the fire department, that stuff may be funny, but at the end of the day, if you just want to use the basic electric knife sharpener or the kind where you just put the blade in and pull,
That's the one I
go
have.
in one direction, check your blade, wash your blade, then use your blade.
Right.
It looks nice when you can take an onion and
Because
chop it into the smallest pieces or anything like that.
Because there's little granules on it when you
That's
do
right.
that thing. So always rinse it
That's
and
right.
then start using
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
So
I saw that
sharpening-
on something like years ago to do that. That was another thing with your knife.
Right.
You know.
So sharpening the knife, why it's important is because you may have to only use but one knife. Now, let's face it, everybody knows what my knife set looks like. I have a knife for every purpose of everything in food.
So what are your more important knives
Okay.
to cook with? Like,
Right.
what is it, like 3 you think everyone
Three
should
main
have?
knives. I think everybody should have a cleaver. Why? Because cleavers are used for chopping in depth of food and through depths of food.
Well, what if you're fearful?
Well, that means that what you do is you get yourself a long enough knife and you use it from front to back. Without a sawing action, you can actually, and guys, please, you don't cut towards yourself, you cut away from yourself.
So you go like that.
So when you cut, if you notice, you always see me cut forwards, like it looks like I'm in almost like a
Like
stabbing motion. And the reason is because no one's standing in front of me. And if you do this, and by any accident, you are with your hand or you are with the end of a table, you'd be surprised how that could actually cut the end of a table, a cutting board, or even so much as anything that you have around.
And I cut down
Right.
because I have a large counter. You
And there's a
you
difference.
know my counter.
And there's a difference between slicing and chopping. You slice
That's true.
forward, but you chop straight down.
Ah,
A
okay.
knife that chops straight down usually has a square bottom and no rounded end, so it looks like this.
Right.
A knife that is going to slice has a curved upwards. So one looks like a sailboat and the other one looks like a bullnose.
Okay, so I got the sailboat.
In metaphoric. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one knife they should have. Should they have 2 of those? One big one, one small,
you
and
can have
that's
one
enough?
cleaver, one good knife to slice. Everybody should always have a paring knife.
Oh yeah, I have a
And then
paring
to
knife.
me, like they always say, you should have one that's mainly for produce. Because you don't really need a chef knife for produce. Guys, you're cutting up an apple. You're cutting up a squash. I mean, why would you want a knife that looks like that you should be in some kind of a movie, you know, killing 50 people?
We're not going to talk
in the
about
middle
that
of a room?
movie, yes.
Okay, so long story short, at least 3 or 4 basic knives that are very important. If you get those and keep them sharp, you will find yourself to always be very pleased with the way things come out, and you'll never have to say, oh, I can't do that because, oh, I can't do that because.
Got you.
Cooking is an art, but it still also is a very, very important facilitation, okay? If you don't know how, take a video and look. If not, just be careful. Okay.
Let's do a couple of verses because a lot of people have asked us questions.
Absolutely.
So with stoves, electric stove versus a gas stove, and I'm not talking about which one is better in today's day and age and today's technology. They're both pretty good.
Right.
They really
Right.
are. But what's your, things you should know about electric, things you should know about gas?
Okay. Well, the way I look at it is this, folks, and I'll be honest with you. Your stove is your stove. If it's only by the way that, of course, it does its thing, whether it be electric or gas, learn your stove. Learn anything about the burners. Learn anything about your oven. I'm not asking you to test it because that's not easy and that could be that's not cost effective.
Well, testing can still be cooking.
Right.
And then you
But
see.
remember,
right.
if you've never done something before
Right.
and you're testing
It
it
can be
based upon
crazy.
that, that could not be, may not be the best way to do it.
Now, this is the other thing I know for me when I first started using my, when I first started, one second, when I first started baking with my oven. Now, it's an electric with a gas charge, like a gas stove, right?
That's why you hear the tick, 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 tick,
yes,
tick.
Yes, so it's still an electric stove. But I just found out like the past year that when I put something on like 450, I have to tone it down.
Right.
Because it's almost like it's too hot.
There
but
you
I've
go.
been using this stove for 3.5 years.
Right. So the thing about it is, what did you learn? Stoves do wind up getting where they almost like get kicked into their drive.
Oh.
It's like when you start a car and you put it on, and the first thing that you notice that happens is that, oh man, when I broke on the corner last week, I didn't have to push down on my pedal as hard.
Right.
But now when I start the car, it winds up revving and kicking in faster.
Right.
So look at that.
It's the same thing with ovens.
And look at the same concept of the stove.
Okay.
That's why I say, guys, you may have to test it a little bit. What you should do is, and this is very simple, do it with simple things. Make a grilled cheese. Don't make $100 salmon. Make yourself an egg. Do not bake bread.
Right,
Okay?
right.
If
Anything
you
that's
do-
complicated, do
If
something
you
that's kind of.
do it with the most simplified version of anything that you have. I don't care if it's an open flame in the middle of in the middle of a campfire. But the fact of the matter is, how hot is that flame?
Yeah,
What
I
can
got
you
it.
cook with it?
Okay.
And never. See this?
Right.
You still want those 5 to belong there?
And have
never
count up to 10.
test it
Yeah.
with your hand.
Right.
Never go over a stove or a top or a grill or anything like that.
Gotcha.
And never just open up an oven and say, hey, let's see how hot it is.
Yeah. I always, when you open up the oven, you always step away. My oven is very hot. Like
That's
I
right.
said, I put something. Recently, it said 425 or something. I had to make it like 390.
Yep.
And I just gave it a couple of more minutes. I'm sure 400 would have been fine, but it worked out well. I gave it a little more time.
That's why when we did the ratatouille, since we were baking it, unlike the way that we did the spare ribs that day, the rim of the ribs.
Right,
Not the
right.
ribs, I'm sorry, the pork chops.
Pork
I'm sorry,
chops,
guys.
pork chops.
I don't
Yeah,
remember my own show. I'm fired already, and I fired myself. But the thing about it is that the way that we did the two different things, how long did the ratatouille take? It took almost an hour.
Right.
How long did the pork chops take?
Right.
Maybe 10, 15 minutes at the
Right.
most.
But that's because we cooked it,
And remember, and this is to be honest,
right.
I don't really know Crystal Stove all that well because even with the many times I've
But
come
you
over
took
to
a
cook,
chance with it.
there
yeah,
were things
right.
that we had to do. Don't try to keep opening your oven and checking temperatures of
No.
things because not only you're going to lose the heat index and it has to wind up recreating itself, but you're going to wind up making things take longer.
Okay.
So the main thing is just learn your stove and whether it is one or the other, test it with simple things.
Absolutely.
Very simple.
So how about another versus fresh versus frozen?
Yeah.
Is there anything, and I'm mostly talking about vegetables and fruit,
Right.
but we could talk about,
Right.
fresh fish, but let's talk about vegetables
Right.
and stuff. So which
I
one
think
is
a lot
better?
has to do with time. How much
Okay.
time do you have in the day to make all this food?
Okay.
You could sit around and say, oh yeah, well I have a party at 20 and the first thing I want to do is spend half the day cooking. Okay. Let's make the
Which
one.
is a possibility
Right.
you might need to do. Right.
Two of the most metaphoric holidays that we work with
Oh,
are
yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right.
The mom, the dad, the family, they go in the kitchen and spend 8 hours cooking this, that, and the other. And in 15 minutes, it's all destroyed. Now, here's the question.
Especially
Why
when
did it take
he's
so
eating.
long? Why did it take so long? What was the reason why we all had to go in there together?
Right.
And what could we have done to make it all simpler?
Got you.
So,
Got you.
if it was a matter of fresh versus frozen, what could you make that's frozen, or what can you have that's frozen that would be a little easier to work with?
Right,
It all depends on if it's a vegetable, if it's a fruit, and remember, guys, things sometimes do come prepackaged. I'm not going to stand here and basically say that prepackaged is a good or a bad thing if it's frozen, but again, it's how much time you have.
Right.
So if you have time and it's going to be all fresh stuff, again, I know that it sounds like I must be making money off of farmers markets. I don't. I'm not a farmer. I'm the exact opposite of that. I'm the guy that goes in there and judges the food, and then will make it as a chef saying,
And
I
then you
like
bring it
this,
home
I
and
like
use
that,
it.
I
Yeah.
can smell this, I can smell that, I can see the freshness in this,
Gotcha.
I can see the non-freshness in something else. But at the
Gotcha.
same point, the main thing is if you have enough time and you can work with fresh, that's fine. But if not, and you can find a good level of stuff that's frozen,
Right.
look at how it was frozen, don't worry about the company. Again, it's not branding. Nowadays, everybody is having a brandings war. Okay, as long as it looks like it's pretty fresh or it is pretty fresh, the main thing is how long you want to spend. Because let's say every day you come home and you have to cook for 3 or 4 people,
Right.
or you have to cook for yourself and you have a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
When you get
so
home-
frozen might be easier, right?
That's right.
Because then you just throw it all together, heat it up. Yeah.
When
I
you
got
get
it.
home, the last thing that you want to do is sit around chopping up this, putting together that,
Yeah.
blending this. But if you could do that the day before,
Right.
or if you could do enough of it,
And then sometimes I do that.
and
Like I
then
do
that's
it on
the thing, like I
weekend.
always explain
Yeah.
to you.
Mhm.
And this is why sometimes, guys, measuring and the mise en place
And just
become
make sure you
important.
have those. Yeah.
There's
Gotcha.
times that I've made stuff for Crystal that we've saved extra of. And then when she was ready later in the week, she took those chopped red onions, she took the garlic,
And used
she
it,
took
yeah.
the other stuff and added it into other infusions and
Gotcha.
everything.
Yeah.
So again, that's the fresh
Right.
versus the frozen. But
Right.
it's okay if you take it in a Ziploc bag or those things that seal it and keep it completely with air out, because we all know that air creates mold, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It can
Right.
be here all
You got to
day.
be careful with that.
And then you take that and put it in your refrigerator or freezer, and then just before you leave to come home, or when you leave to go out to work, you take it, put
Take
it
it
in the
out.
fridge,
Right.
and now you're ready to put it into whatever mixture.
Right. Got it.
It's okay to season meat in the morning and then heat it at night.
Right.
And you know what's funny? And I'll tell you this. You remember Mom used to do that?
Yes, she would do that
When
all
we
the
would
time.
get up in the morning to
Yeah.
go to school, and she was getting
She was
dressed
making
for
our
work.
sandwiches, making
And she was making
breakfast.
dinner.
This is when we were like young kids, like
That's right.
younger than teenagers. She would
That's
have
right.
that stuff. She would have season all the meat. She'd go to work.
Mm-hmm.
She'd come back. Now, luckily, she didn't get out late, like
No,
5 or 6.
She got out at
She
3
got
and
out
we
at,
didn't
like,
get home
2
till
or
about
3.
5 or so.
Yeah, no, she was getting out like 2 something. We
Right.
got out at 3 something for school.
Yes.
She was already getting, and then when Dad would come home, we would all eat together.
That's right.
Yeah, we were really a bougie family, but
So it's
how it turned
all
out.
about really
Yeah.
how much time you have. But again, fresh versus frozen, don't worry about where it comes from, but make it where you know how fresh or, of course, how long it's been
Right,
frozen.
right.
And guys, don't over freeze food.
Right.
Don't put something in a deep freeze, like almost like in dried ice.
It's
You know, this is not a cadaver that you're trying to preserve for a later autopsy.
Kyle.
Okay? Oh, stop. No, but the thing about it is that it's just like the way that the things with the stoves are. This is how you learn the different product or the different things that you have.
Okay, it's not quite the time of year where you're often making a lot for a large group of people, but
Right.
we've had people who've said, sometimes when you're only making for 2, 3, a small family, now you're making for a large group. Are there any other things you should keep in mind that are not just about increasing the volume of the food? Is there anything else you should know?
Yeah. Okay. The most important part pretty much is that you're going to make for, let's say, 10 people. We'll start at 1, and then, of course, the way to multiply is you can multiply by larger groups.
Okay.
6 is half a dozen, 10 is a full, is pretty much a good group of people. And you're going to make meatballs. You guys remember when we did the
We
meatballs?
made the meatballs, that's right.
And you remember how I measured them out on the scale. Why is it that I did that? And of course, everybody's probably saying to themselves, well, why did you do that? Okay, I did that for reasons of production. If you're making enough of something and you want them to all be the same size and not waste, you have one meatball that looks like a softball, one that looks like a ping pong ball, one that looks like a baseball, and we could be here all day. And of course, I'm not going to get into the part about we're talking about balls. The fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, the main thing is that if they're all the same, not only you use the same amount of meat, but you can make as many as you want.
Right.
So now that's why the measuring is important. And of course, the ingredients now, you can still slightly put more ingredients or less ingredients and stuff, but make things that you've made before over and over and over again. It doesn't mean that you add 10 times the amount of spice 10 times the amount of anything at all. It's mainly the main parts, the staples. It's mainly the meat and partially the ingredients that when you start making things in larger amounts, you can start to multiply.
Oh, so it's not just about that, oh, yeah, everybody eats 1 ounce of chicken. Now you're having 10 people, you should have 10 ounces of chicken. So it's more than that. It's
That's right.
like, also, you should take time. That is one thing, you know, for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Now, I have cooked for, I think the most I've cooked for is 11 people at one time. I think that's the most I've done.
Right.
But still, it's not just about, you have to have like variety. You have to make sure you take time
Yes.
to do this. Because some people say, oh, I could start Thanksgiving dinner or a large dinner, a dinner party the day before. No, you really need to, depending on how big it is, a week before.
That's right.
More. Like, do you have all, I'm a logistic person. Do you have the plates? Do you have everything you need? So there's a lot of different things. So it's not just about measurements. It's also about like look into the logistics of stuff.
Yes,
And
yes.
if you can't do it, because sometimes you can't, you're cooking for 20 people. Physically, you might not be able to do that because you're the only person. Ask for help.
Yep.
Ask somebody, okay, you bring this, you bring this,
That's
you bring
right.
this.
That's
All
right.
I do is this. That's fine. I even do that sometimes. Make sure you start out early.
That's right.
And
Big
also,
thing. Big thing.
and if you can't do all of that, you know, order out for it. Just really, like,
Oh,
you
whatever
know
you
what?
have to.
I have 15 people. I'm gonna make one big chicken. I'm gonna send out for lasagna, and you know, maybe get green beans, something, and then or potato salad if it's
Right.
the summer, and just okay, and that's good. Then all I have to do is concentrate on 2 things. So no, this is very important. So it's not just about like you're having 10 people increase. There's other factors you
Right.
have to look into.
And of course,
Okay.
guys, one of the main things, and this is why we always bring this up, if you know what you're making, if you know your
Right.
oven, if you know the condition of the people that are actually coming over,
Right.
and of course, remember, those things
With
all
the
become part of the
allergies
meal
and
and stuff
stuff.
like that.
You
You also know who could bring something and who may not be able to.
right.
And you want to always, and you know, you use the word loosely, cater to those people. So what you do is you make sure you have enough time and maybe the right people that can help you to work in a kitchen. The most organized chaos in the world is watching 5 people in a kitchen that I've
Right.
worked in before make one meal.
Right.
Everybody's working on all different things. One guy's doing the soup, one guy's doing the ice cream, one guy's doing the garde manger, which is the appetizer, or even so much as the salad part and everything like that.
Okay.
But when they say this has to go out, this has to go out, this has to
Right.
go out, everything goes out in time, but you'll just get it on a plate.
Well, it's funny because you said that the most deliberate, organized chaos ever is in a restaurant.
That's right.
So,
Right. Other than
and
that,
then
other
we
than
don't see any of
chaos
that.
is
We just
everything
see the
else that
plate.
happens. Exactly.
Yeah, right. We just see the plate and
when
we
you
eat.
see the
and
plate
that's
that's
it.
so beautifully dressed, and it looks like nobody ever did anything but actually make the food and drop it right there on the plate
That's what they
without
do. But
a
we
little
know
bit of
that's
dirt,
not
a little
what
bit of
happens.
whatever it is, and
Yeah.
everything like that. And somebody cleaned that plate off before it was brought out to
That's
you.
right.
That's the work that gets put into cooking, because guys, you do see things first with your eyes, then you taste it with your mouth.
Absolutely.
People don't realize that cooking has always been an art. It always will be an art, and
That's
it's going
right.
to stay that
And thank
longer
goodness.
than any
Yeah.
painting in the world, because people always try to make sculpture
And they're replicating
and more
Right,
things
right.
of art when it comes down to food.
So pieces of art, like this Guatemalan little rug I have, there's only, you know, however many they make.
That's right.
20, 30, it could be 10,000. I have no clue.
Right.
But when you make a dish, like something that's the chicken, what's the chicken with the chocolate stuff on it?
You mean the truffle chicken, or you're talking
Not
about
truffle
the one that
chicken, I
looks like
forgot the
the
one. Yeah, I can't think of the name of the chicken, and it has the like Mexican stuff on it. But anyway, you could make it.
Oh,
I
I know
could
what
make
you're
it.
talking about.
15 people. What's it called?
oh wait a minute.
Now I can't think of it. I'm going to
Okay.
put it on. Don't worry, we'll figure it out. But you know, when each person makes it, it's their own masterpiece.
That's right.
So
That's
that's
right.
when you think about
I mean,
it.
one of the biggest things that people like to make is paella.
Mm-hmm.
Paella is
Oh,
made in
got
more
it.
than one country,
Right.
and it's made with a lot of different melanges of different meats and,
Absolutely.
and a lot of different fishes and stuff like that. Fishes? No, fish.
And some
No,
some
there's no
don't.
such thing as a plural fish.
And some don't even have fish in it.
That's
Some
right.
just have
That's
chicken
right.
and other
'Cause-
stuff.
and that's
I
how
always
then-
make it with octopus and the other stuff.
and that's
in it.
how
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you cater to, of course,
Right.
people's allergies,
Gotcha.
and also how long things take.
Right, right.
First
right.
time I ever made paella, I cheated. I took the Goya paella, and added all the other things that I had to.
Yeah, and the chicken.
Now that was cheating a lot because the part with the squid and then the part with, of course, so much is even the rice and everything like that. That takes more work than putting the other things together.
And also, there's a lot of salt in there too.
Yeah, there
right?
unfortunately is a lot of salt.
Yeah,
but the thing about it is that, again, folks, our main concern is this.
Yeah.
Learn your oven, learn your friends, learn how much time you have to be able to make your food. But for the most part, enjoy what you do.
Yeah, right.
Because one of the biggest things that we want you to be able to see in this show is that if you don't love what you do or you at least like doing this,
move on to something else.
I'm not saying that you're wasting your time, but just work as best as you can with what you have.
That's right.
You don't need to learn to become a chef. You don't need to learn any of the big things that people want to do.
Absolutely.
We're not all trying to be on TV. The only thing we're trying to do is teach, develop, and have people become a little bit closer to knowledge about the things that you need in your own
Absolutely.
kitchen.
A nice combination.
You know what I'm saying?
And you know, speaking of that, we've gotten this question, like almost every friend have asked us about this. What was your thought? What made you think about creating this YouTube show?
Well,
and I'll tell you a little bit from me.
Yeah, I remember the way you started out.
Yeah, because this started out a long time before because well, Kyle was in the hospital for a period of time.
Right.
And I went to go and visit him. And the second time, I think it was the second or third time.
It was the second time.
Second
and
or
I
third
remember
time.
why.
Second or third time I went to visit him. And it was when the nurses were around and also there was a physical therapist. There were a couple of people that were there. And I was like joking with you, like he's in the bed, they're helping him, and I'm on the side of his hospital room. And he was saying something, I was saying something, like we're almost having like a crazy back and forth conversation. And one of the nurses was laughing so much. And she said, you two are so funny. You're like the brother and sister comedy team. And then after that, right after she said that, we all laughed, everybody in the room. And then you were asked about food because they said they were asking some questions to make sure you were okay. Remember, you were lucid, and you said, "Well, what's the temperature of steak and stuff?"
I did one of the things where I said, "Okay, you have a question now. I have a question."
Yeah.
I said, "What's the temperature of a medium well done steak?"
You're right, and the guy was like, I don't know.
Because the first thing he said when he came in the room was, he said, "Oh, I know how to cook." I said, "Okay, let's see." I said, "What is the temperature of a medium well done steak?"
Arrogant.
And he looked at me and I said, "Okay, I'm going to explain this to you nicely. You have 3 seconds to answer. You're fired."
Anyway, but that happened, I must tell you, that happened right away.
Right.
That happened, with the joking with brother and sister and the whole thing. It happened right after another.
That's right.
And then after we talked about the YouTube channel, you came up with the pantry. Go ahead.
And the thing about the pantry is, guys, is that we all have one in our kitchen.
Right.
And it is one of the main staples of basically the kitchen, because if you can work from there to your refrigerator or from there outwards of this, not just your refrigerator, but even so much as your table, again, this is why things like the fresh fruit, the herbs, the spices, all those things can be so helpful. Even things like the ridiculously small spoon.
You love the ridiculously small spoon.
But the thing about it is that those are the things that make a difference in why we want this show to reasonably present itself and be so forwards in the way that we represent the cooking and everything.
And it has a lot to do with, because of the lockdown. Sometimes you don't want to go to the store. Like during the week, most of the time I'd go once, maybe twice a week if I forgot something.
Right.
When the lockdown started, sometimes you didn't even want to go once. You just wanted to go and quick, and that would be it. So you might not go every 2 weeks. So you have to kind of know or have some idea of what's in the pantry and what you can do.
Yep.
So we're kind of sparking people's creativity.
Right.
And you can be very creative with something very simple if you throw in the best staples and then throw in some cool spices, and you got it.
That's right.
Simple as that.
So
we're here again with I'm Crystal, his sister,
Chef Kyle.
And we're always talking about being in the pantry and what's in the pantry this week.